Identity. It's who we are. Those qualities and characteristics that make each one of us, us. It's important that we each know who we are, even as we continue to grow and change throughout our lives. Identity includes a sense of continuity, a sense of uniqueness, and a sense of affiliation. So Jesus brings up this important question in today's gospel, his identity. Jesus' disciples have been with him for 3 years, walking, listening, watching as he taught, healed, and showed them what love looks like and does. They've traveled as far north as they will go, and in a week, Jesus will turn his face to Jerusalem and his willing death. Today, they're in a large Roman city surrounded by grand buildings and statues of the Roman gods and emperors. This is a seat of power politics of the conquering rulers, and the conquered Jewish people know this well. We can think of it as Caesarville. Here in Caesarville, in the shadow of their overlords, Jesus asks his disciples who people are saying that he is. Everybody throws in something that they've heard. He's the reincarnation of one or another of the great prophets. That's who the world out there says Jesus is. Then we get to the crux of the matter. But who do you say that I am? Suddenly there's silence. Maybe their eyes are downcast, hoping Jesus will not call on them. And a few feet shuffle in the dust. What's going through their heads? Their answer is critical because it also implies who they are and what they're willing to commit their lives to. By extension, of course, that includes us, who we believe Jesus to be for us and what we're willing to commit our lives to. Jesus hasn't said, I am the Messiah, so do they dare say it first? What if they're wrong? Are they afraid, embarrassed to say out loud what they hope in their hearts? They've been wondering if he might not be the Messiah ever since the very beginning. Finally, Peter speaks up. Good old, impetuous, foot in his mouth Peter. And he makes a stunning statement of faith. You are the Messiah, the Son of God, the living God. Only Peter spoke up, and he got it right this time. Now we know that just a few verses later in next week's gospel, Jesus will say, "Get behind me, Satan," to this same Peter. When he refuses to accept what kind of Messiah Jesus really is. When Jesus says, "I must die." Peter will misunderstand, get in the way, and even deny he knows Jesus in the weeks to come. But at this moment, he gets it right. That's what the lectionary chooses to focus on today. Here in Caesarville, Peter's statement is like a shot across Rome's political bow. Jesus praises Peter, saying he's blessed because God has revealed Jesus' true identity to him. God has given Peter faith, and he's courageous enough to speak it out loud. The church, which is Jesus' continuing work in the world, will be built on Peter, not because he's so holy and special, but because he spoke up with the truth that God gave him. In fact, as we know, the church's foundation is the rock, Jesus, and it will be built over the ages on all the God-given faith and willingness to speak up and act that all Jesus followers will show after the resurrection and the coming of the Holy Spirit to this very moment. Because the living God is with the disciples in the person of Jesus, God is present and active in all their lives. They've experienced the proof of who Jesus is. In the deeds of power they've seen him do. But why did Jesus ask in the first place? Did he ask because in their searching for an answer, Jesus could help form and shape them to follow him even to the cross? Does it make a difference how they answered? Well, yes. Eventually, these men will be martyred rather than stop proclaiming to the world who Jesus is. Their answer to Jesus' question is something they'll be willing to die for. Does it make a difference how we would answer that question? Every day we proclaim who Christ is to the world by our identity as Christians, by what we say and how we act for good or ill. Non-Christian people out in the world judge Christianity by the Christians they know. Non-church-going people out in the world judge the church by the church-going people they know. Because we are Jesus followers, the things we do, our actions, decisions, choices, in fact, ripple out with consequences foreseen and unforeseen, for good or for ill, for the health or the damage of the world. So who do we say Jesus is? Each of us. Who is Jesus for us? Messiah, Son of the living God, is language that was rooted in Jewish tradition. It had deep meaning for Peter and the others. What language might we use that has deep meaning for us? For me, in answer to Jesus' question, who do you say that I am? I would answer, you are God with us, with me, who never leaves us, who understands everything about us, good and bad, and loves us completely anyway. I would say you are God's love in human form that comforts, forgives, challenges, and transforms me and all who follow you, so that we might transform the world into your dream of justice, truth, and love. You are the one who has conquered evil and death and offers life to all. How do I know these things? Because that's how I've experienced God in my life. My lifelong relationship with God has had many sweet spots and many, many difficult bumps. There have been times when I walked away angry and hurt for a good long time. But God always came and found me, inviting me home. Who do you say Jesus is? What words would describe your experience of who Jesus is for you? You've all experienced God's presence and action in your lives. If you dared to talk about it, what words would you use? With all that's swirling around us right now, wildfires, floods, economic despair, division, and war, where do you see God's hand working? Where do you see God with us? Where do you see Christians getting it right? Because the Spirit of Christ is present and has given them the courage to speak up and act. Who is the Jesus you're willing to commit to stake your life on? Maybe the gift of the lectionary choice to focus today on how Peter, by God's grace, got it right, can help us focus on our own experience of God's presence and action in our lives. Maybe this week each of us could say to ourselves, maybe even write it down, who we say Jesus is. Perhaps we can look at ourselves and see if our eyes reflect who Jesus is for us. What are we proclaiming to the world about him? If we're able to be clear with ourselves about who we believe Jesus is, it might allow us to continue being transformed by the renewing of our minds, as St. Paul said today. Christianity is not about a set of beliefs. It's about a real relationship with the living God through Jesus. So, who do you say Jesus is?